Welcome back to the deep dive. We're digging into your sources today, and wow, the topic is huge. We're talking about how just four key inventions basically revolutionized, well, everything. How humans shared ideas, knowledge, even power across almost 1,000 years. Okay, let's unpack this a bit. This deep dive is really for you, the curious learner out there who wants to how we went from, say, a message on parliament taking weeks by ship to sending a selfie across the globe, like instantly. We are looking at a stack of sources focusing on these technological leaps that just completely reshape civilization, starting way back in the Middle Ages. So here's a big question to get us started. And take a second to really picture this. Imagine a world where the only way to share a new idea was to talk to someone face to face. That's it. How long do you think it would take for a revolution, a massive change in science or politics or art to actually spread and maybe even succeed across a whole continent?
That time lag. It's the fundamental problem of so much of early history, isn't it? As our sources really highlight, these communication tools weren't just nice to haves. They were literally instruments of control and instruments of change. Every single invention we're going to look at today allowed messages, allowed ideas to spread faster and further than ever before. It dramatically sped up the pace of history itself. So our mission today is to trace this incredible development through four fundamental technologies and really understand how they quite literally shaped the world you're living in right now.
Right, that's the plan. So logically, we start with the big shift from just talking to actually reliably writing things down and sharing them. We're looking at around what 1000 CE, when paper and pen started becoming more common in Europe.
Yeah, and what's fascinating, as the sources point out, is that paper wasn't new globally. It was ancient in China. It reached Europe through extensive trade routes, mainly via the Islamic world, and it started replacing materials like vellum and primate.
Which were made from animal skins, right? So incredibly expensive and time-consuming to produce.
Exactly. Very costly. So paper arriving was a kind of affordability revolution in itself.
Ah, okay. So suddenly it becomes actually feasible for more people, or at least institutions, to write things down. Official documents, maybe letters, scholarly notes.
Precisely. Before paper became widespread, think about standardizing a law across, say, 3 different regions. You need 3 scribes painstakingly copying onto that expensive parchment. Paper made it cheaper and faster.
So the simple availability, the lower cost of paper, meant ideas could finally travel reliably beyond just who you could talk to.
Yes, it allowed knowledge, verifiable information to cross borders much more easily. This had a huge stabilizing effect in many ways on trade, on law.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for you listeners. Think about this for a second. How might simply having cheaper, more available writing materials, like for letters or official decrees, have changed things like education or even diplomacy between kingdoms back then? Pause and think about that.
It really enabled a new level of organization and, well, complexity. Centralized power could project itself further. Trade deals could become more detailed, more reliable over distance.
That kind of laid the groundwork, didn't it?
Absolutely. It set the stage perfectly for the next and arguably even more impactful shift.
Yeah.
Johannes Gutenberg's printing press around 1440.
Right. If paper made writing possible on a larger scale, the printing press made copying and distributing those writings, well, exponential.
That's the key. We talk about an information explosion, and this is really the first one. Before Gutenberg, books were treasures. Hand-copied, incredibly rare, mostly owned by the church or the super rich.
That after the press,
They became affordable. I mean, relatively speaking, but affordable enough that literacy started to spread much more widely across Europe. It wasn't overnight, but the trend was undeniable.
and this wasn't just about more people reading stories, was it? There was a power shift involved.
Oh, absolutely, a massive one. When more ordinary people could buy and read texts themselves, whether it was religious scripture, scientific papers, or political pamphlets, the traditional gatekeepers lost control.
You mean like kings or church leaders, they couldn't dictate the only interpretation anymore?
Exactly. They couldn't control the narrative in the same way when potentially millions of people could access information, could access challenging information directly.
It's amazing how quickly this technology seems to have made waves. The sources link it directly to huge events.
They do. The printing press didn't just print books. You could argue it helped print revolutions. It was absolutely crucial for the Reformation. Martin Luther's ideas spread like wildfire because they could be printed quickly and cheaply.
And the scientific revolution too, right? Researchers could share findings, critique each other's work across borders almost instantly compared to before.
Yes, building knowledge collectively became much, much faster. It accelerated everything.
Okay, quick quiz moment, just thinking aloud here. Who invented that press again?
Johannes Gutenberg, around 1440.
Got it. And why would governments maybe get a little nervous about more people learning to read back then?
Well, think about it. If people can read challenges to your authority or learn about different ways of organizing society, knowledge is power, and they were losing their monopoly on it.
Makes sense. Okay, that print revolution took centuries to fully play out, but it fundamentally changed things. Now, let's big jump forward.
Several centuries, yeah.
We're flying past the edge of sail, past maybe even early steam, into the mid-1800s, the age of electricity, and suddenly distance starts to mean something different. Instant communication becomes a thing.
Exactly. This is the era where speed conquers distance. And the first really massive leap in that instantaneous communication was the telegraph, patented by Samuel Morse in 1837.
It seems almost quaint now, maybe, but it must have been mind-blowing back then.
Oh, completely astonishing. The idea of sending electrical pulses down a wire.
And translating them using that code, right? Morse code, dots and dashes. It basically became a new universal language for this tech.
It did. And the impact wasn't just faster than sending a letter by horse or train. It was practically instantaneous over huge distances.
So who used it first? What was the big initial impact?
Well, governments and armies jumped on it immediately. Imagine coordinating military campaigns across vast distances in, like, minutes instead of waiting days or weeks for messengers. It totally changed warfare strategy. Command and control became centralized in a way never possible before.
Okay, that makes sense for conflict, but what about, like, everyday life or business?
Well, that's where the sources point to perhaps an even bigger, deeper impact. The telegraph didn't just change wars. It fundamentally created modern global finance.
How so?
For the very first time, you could know the price of something, say, wheat in Chicago almost instantly, and compare it to the price of wheat in London or Liverpool.
Okay, so it killed information delays in markets.
Precisely. This leveled the playing field in terms of pricing information and created truly global commodity markets. It also fueled the growth of massive corporations.
Because they could coordinate.
Yeah. You could manage factories, track supply chains, coordinate sales across entire continents, almost in real time. It made huge, centrally managed international businesses possible.
Still the telegraph. It's just dots and dashes, right?
Yeah.
The cold, maybe. Lacking something.
It was purely informational, yes. Efficient, but stripped of, well, humanity.
Yeah.
Which brings us perfectly to the next big leap just a few decades later. The telephone. Alexander Graham Bell, 1876.
Okay, and the key difference here is obvious, but huge.
It's the voice. The telephone carried the actual human voice instantly across distance. That was a monumental step up from the coded clicks of the telegraph.
So it brought back the personal element.
Absolutely. It introduced emotion, tone, nuance, all the subtleties of spoken conversation that were completely lost in Morse code.
And how did that change things? Was it used the same way as the telegraph?
Not entirely. While the telegraph remained vital for, mass data, government messages, global finance, the telephone quickly became crucial for local business and personal connection. Think about coordinating within a city, businesses talking to suppliers, families staying in touch. It helped accelerate urban growth because you didn't need to be physically next door to communicate effectively.
Interesting. Let's just compare those two speed inventions for a second. Telegraph versus telephone. Both are fast. But how is actually hearing someone's voice maybe more powerful, ultimately, than just getting a coded message quickly?
Well, think about trust, negotiation, complexity.
Yeah.
If you're trying to sort out a tricky business deal or understand a sensitive family matter, hearing the person's tone, sensing their hesitation or their confidence, that changes everything, doesn't it?
Yeah, you get so much more than just the words.
Exactly. It allows for that immediate back and forth, the clarification, the reading between the lines that Morse code just couldn't convey. It put the human element back into instant communication.
Okay, another quick check for everyone listening. Telegraph was first, right? 1837.
That's right, Morse.
And Bell's telephone.
1876. So about 40 years later.
And just for historical context, which came first? The Reformation or the telephone?
The Reformation, definitely. By several centuries, the telephone is firmly in the Industrial Revolution era.
Good check. Okay, let's step back now and try to pull these threads together. We've got 4 huge technological shifts.
Right, a clear progression, really.
Paper and pen, making writing widely accessible around 1000 CE.
Then Gutenberg's printing press in 1440, making knowledge replicable and affordable, sparking literacy.
Then a big jump to the telegraph in 1837, conquering distance with instant coded messages.
And finally, the telephone in 1876, adding the human voice to that instant connection.
And as you've pointed out, we can map these directly onto major historical periods and movements.
Absolutely. The sources connect the printing press fundamentally to the Renaissance, the Reformation. The scientific revolution period is defined by the spread of new ideas. And the telegraph and telephone are inseparable from the Industrial Revolution. They were the command and control network, the nervous system that allowed for that massive scaling up of industry, transport, and global trade.
Okay, so this leads us to the big synthesis question, the one we really want you, the listener, to wrestle with. Looking at these four, paper, press, telegraph, telephone, which one do you think had the single greatest overall impact? And you could argue impact on, say, democracy or science or maybe global trade specifically.
It's a genuinely tough question, and historians debate it. There's no single right answer. It depends on what criteria you value most. Is it the printing press, which, fundamentally broke the elite's control over information and arguably enabled modern democracy and science by empowering individuals with knowledge?
Or is it maybe the telegraph? That sheer speed, the way it instantly shrank the planet and made global empires and global capitalism function on a totally new level. Did that raw speed ultimately change the world more?
What do you lean towards?
It's tough. I think my gut goes towards the printing press just for that fundamental long-term philosophical shift it created. The democratization of knowledge that feels incredibly profound.
A strong case.
But you absolutely cannot ignore the way the telegraph and later the telephone just completely reshaped the physical and economic realities of the world almost overnight. That instantaneous connection changed how nations operated, how wars were fought, how money moved. It was revolutionary in a very immediate practical sense.
So the challenge for you listening is to pick one and think about why. Use the history, the impacts we've discussed, to build your argument.
So we've kind of achieved our mission for today, haven't we? We've traced how these four foundational technologies really built the scaffolding for our modern hyper-connected world.
We have. And the core takeaway seems clear. Faster. Wider communication almost always equals faster. Wider societal change. For better or worse sometimes, but change nonetheless.
And this journey, this story, is obviously far from over. If we connect this to the really big picture, these four inventions kind of set the stage, establish the rules of the game for communication technology.
That's a great way to put it.
So next time, we'll pick up the story and move into the technologies that utterly defined the 20th century and created the mass media landscape we know today. We're talking radio, television, and of course the internet. The tools that created really mass global culture.
And notice that acceleration. It took centuries between paper becoming common and the printing press, then centuries again to the telegraph, but only about 40 years between the telegraph and the telephone. Think about what that ever-increasing speed of innovation means for the technology shaping your life right now. It's exponential.
Definitely something to ponder. Okay, that's our deep dive for today. Thanks for joining us. Your homework, if you choose to accept it, try sketching out a simple timeline. Put these four inventions on it, then start adding some major historical events, the Renaissance, the Industrial Revolution, maybe specific wars or discoveries, and see how they line up. See those connections for yourself.
Great suggestion. It really helps visualize the impact.
See you next time on The Deep Dive.